What is going on, OG55 family? We are today going live talking about that Bob Iger email sent to fans. We're going to discuss it. We're going to discuss the ESPN ABC possible spinoff. There's been a lot of word on the street that Disney's going to get rid of these two brands. We're also going to talk a lot about Avatar, some building permit stuff, crowding in the parks. We're going to talk about all of it up next on OG55. Merry Christmas. Let's begin. Welcome aboard, everybody. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to this very special OG55 Live. I am joined by my good friend, my collaborator, my producer, Mr. Vash Sky, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on the channel. Welcome back, brother.
Hey, happy to be back. Happy to be back. This is it's a pretty thick show, as the kids would say right here. But
thicker than She-Hulk?
I don't know if anybody can be that thick. Let's be honest here. No, I'm joking. I'm happy to be part of it. So thank you for having me on, OG. By the way, I just want to go ahead and set out some well wishes and thoughts and prayers out to people on the East Coast. I know our buddy Disney Family Man 23 George was supposed to actually be with us today, and unfortunately he kind of got caught up in this storm. He's been having some power issues and intermittently and so forth, and unfortunately he wasn't able to join us. So I know, some people are without power. Some people are having some real difficulties with this storm surge that's kind of enraptured the entire country. So just want to go ahead and put that out there and start things off with that, of course.
Real quick before you go on, I do actually have Family Man was kind enough to set up a GoPro on his roof, and I got some live footage. We got the Disney Family Man 23 cam from PA. It's pretty intense stuff over there over in Pennsylvania. I don't know.
Man, I didn't I didn't know it was that cold that your tauntaun might freeze by the third marker or whatever. But that's cold, man. That is cold. No,
it's cold. It's going to be hard for George to go balls to the wall when your balls are frozen to your thigh. Anyway, we're starting off really good. This is really classy, really classy.
Folks, we only have high-class stuff on this show.
That's right. This is good stuff. Well, there it goes. There goes that. But that's okay, though, because, hey, let's, as casual would say, let's get the formalities out of the way. If you want to go ahead and follow me, you can go ahead and do so at Vashsky. That's at V as in Victor, ASHSKY on Twitter. Go ahead and just pop that in. That should pop up, as Christine Wastelands McCarthy would say, for all the robust discussion, for sure. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now, Orange Grove 55, where we have shows like the one you're watching right now, Orange Nerd, Citrus Corner with our dear friend and brother, Disney Family Man 23, George, and my own, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. And because it's a live show, well, we'd be remiss if we didn't actually play a little bit of Bill O'Reilly.
We'll do it live! It! Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live! Thing sucks!
That's right.
There we go. And here we go to make it official.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to all who come to this happy place,
welcome to Orange Grove 55.
All right, everybody, it is official. We are live. So a lot of stuff happening. We have a stacked show for you guys today. Let's start off with that email sent by Bob Iger to just about everyone who's ever done business with Disney, I guess. I don't know, this mass email that was sent out. Fascinating stuff, Dre. I'm going to go ahead and pull up your screen, and we're going to kind of go over this because there's a lot here.
Yes, this email, because we didn't get one. This comes to us via...
Actually, I did get one, actually. That night, I got one.
Oh, you got one?
I got one way late, though. Yeah.
Maybe I have to check my email again because I didn't get one. Which, look, listen, For my criticisms of Iger, I can understand. You know, I didn't make the list. I get it, but that's okay though. That's all right. I'll take the jabs. But no, apparently this was massed out to people who had signed up for as D23 members, people who had given their email accounts, I guess, to Disney in the past. So this was massed out here, personalized, which was a nice touch. This comes to us via Alia, who was gracious enough to share it with all of us. So I'll go ahead and read it. And, there has been some commentary made over it. But before we get to that, let's actually see the content of this. This is Dear Viewer, right? From Bob Iger. As we approach the end of 2022, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to the biggest Disney fans in the world, all of you. Disney is fortunate to have the most devoted and enthusiastic fans, and I was reminded of this a few weeks ago when I visited Disneyland Resort and attended the Candlelight Processional. It was invigorating to be surrounded by so many guests who make what we do possible. We love your passion for our company and your enthusiasm for what we create, and we will continue to do our best to exceed your highest expectations. As you know, next year Disney will mark its 100th anniversary. We are immeasurably grateful to the generations of fans all around the globe who have invited our stories and characters into their lives, and we look forward to celebrating the groundbreaking moments, the cherished memories, and the creative visionaries that made Disney the most beloved name in entertainment over the past century. During the coming year, D23 will launch a slate of exciting events to mark the historic milestone. More information can be found here, which is a link provided. Looking at all the opportunities ahead, I can honestly say there has never been a better time to be a Disney fan. It is an extraordinary privilege to lead this remarkable company again, and I am so grateful for your continued passion for Disney. On behalf of all of us at the Walt Disney Company, I wish you a wonderful holiday season and a very happy and prosperous new year. Best, Robert Iger. OG, kind of initial reactions before getting into the reactions of others?
Yeah. Okay. So honestly, I think this was a really good move. I mean, look, there's going to be a lot of cynical kind of like takes, I think, on this. And I think it goes without saying, right? Like, obviously, this was a optics PR move. I'm under no illusion that this isn't that. My issue, my overall feeling, though, is that it was the right move. And I think that, look, we're kind of hungry for this kind of thing as fandom, right? We had a very kind of cold CEO for the past 3 years in Bob Chapek. I've defended Bob Chapek many times on this channel for his business decisions, because I think a lot of his business decisions were the right ones to make. But the PR stuff was really, really bad, right? It was really, really bad. And the relationship between Disney and fans was really, really rocky during those Chapek years. And it's... Look, he would constantly shit the bed with like the unfavorables comment, and there was this constant sort of tension between him and fans. But Bob Iger kind of reaching across olive branch kind of moment to the fans, saying, "Look, we appreciate you. We appreciate your passion. We appreciate what you bring to the table. Right? You're part of the Disney family." I think it was good. I think it was smart. And I think it's very much needed right now after the 3 years of Bob Chapek. I think this is what fans really needed. And look, yes, it's an optics move. Yes, it's a calculated decision. Absolutely. This is not the same as like getting like a Christmas card from your mom who actually loves you or whatever. This is from a guy who's trying to sell you a product. And I totally understand that. But I still think it was a good look, and I think it was the right move, and I think it was the perfect time to do it, in my opinion.
Well, it's an interesting assessment. Yes, you're right. People are going to have cynical takes, but overall, I will generally agree with you. Not the worst move to make, as some people have characterized it. This is an easy win, which I will agree with. However, from my standpoint, I think there's also some nuance too that could be added in. But before I get to my expanded thoughts on this, I'll go ahead and share what a couple of other commenters had to say about this. This comes to us from Mr. Daps, a good dear friend of the channel, by the way. He says this is the first email of its kind to be received from a Disney CEO, and from that CEO's own email address. It comes after 2 years where Disney fans have felt less than appreciated by former Disney CEO Bob Chapek. Since returning as the Disney CEO, Disney fans have seen spirits climb with hopes of things that things will change. And the focus will return to creativity, people, and making magic instead of only the bottom line. This email of gratitude from Iger is a good step as Disney shows the heart of the company has returned under his leadership.
Well, and I have to say too, on this channel, we've talked a lot about how like studio executives and creatives kind of, a lot of times they disrespect fans on like Twitter, right? We saw it recently with James Gunn kind of going after Den of Nerds. We've seen it a lot on the Lucasfilm side, like a lot. In this kind of era of like this kind of back and forth with fans and like, studios, I just think this is something that was kind of welcome. I'm kind of like, it's kind of refreshing, in my opinion, but go on, sir. I do apologize.
Oh, no, you're fine. Oh, all good. Others were not so charitable.
Yeah.
This comes to us via Dusty Sage here from Ice Chat. Missing the point message from Bob Iger to Disney's biggest fans. Today, Disneyland's Magic Key holders are blocked out of the parks through the start of the year. And it is a pretty good point that on the very first day that pass holders of every single tier, for the first time that I can even think of, have been blocked out for a 2-week period of time like this. On the first day that happens, this is the day that Bob Iger sends out this email to his biggest fans and is thank you. I don't know. It seems like I shouldn't go balls to the walls, but who's going to make the crass jokes without George here?
You got to
that's my question, right? It's almost like being urinated on, but getting a poncho. It's like, oh, here you go. It's like, oh, thanks. Do appreciate it. A little bit, right? A little bit. I understand that the Magic Key holders are a subset and a subset of a subset of a subset of fans, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it definitely it may not have resonated well with these specific fans. And again, they are paying thousands of dollars per year to actually go into their parks. But, say la vie, it's the first time Disneyland's top-tier pass holders had not been able to spend the holiday in the parks. True. So it seems a bit strange that today was also the day that Bob Iger sent a personalized form letter to D23 members, free and paid members, letting them know how special they are and how committed he is to exceeding their expectations. Disney fans and tourists alike are feeling the pinch of higher prices, reduced offerings and quality, confusing apps, required park reservations, and longer than ever lines due to a poorly implemented paid front-of-the-line system. If the letter reads a bit tone-deaf, and that's because it is. But we do have hope. Iger means well. He may not just yet realize how broken the park experience is right now. We hope messages like this one get through to him, and then on his next visit to Disneyland, instead of being escorted by Josh Giamaro and corporate guides, that he attempts to experience Disneyland like a real guest. Make a park reservation, park in the structure, wait for the tram, wait for the front gate, try to pull the park ticket up on the app and scan it at the front gate, figure out how to use the park app to either schedule a lightning lane or wait in standby lines, try to ignore frequent ride breakdowns and numerous maintenance issues, order food via mobile order or wait in long lines via standby, try to find a spot to watch nighttime spectaculars, etc. Well, I can assure you that's not going to happen. But he does make a point, right? And this is kind of what Walt kind of wanted for his Imagineers, right? He was very big on, hey, if you go to the actual parks, you wait in the same lines that the guests wait. You buy the same food and eat the same meals at the same tables that the guest eats at, and so forth. Experience the park like a guest. Unfortunately, executive leadership at the Walt Disney Company hasn't done that for quite a long time, and I don't see that changing even with Iger. However, there is, I guess, something to be said about pass holders not being able to access Disneyland, yet you're getting an email like this. And, as I was having this conversation with some, particularly Theme Park Wizard, who is in the chat, by the way, so thank you for joining us, Wizard.
Wizard!
And he says he actually got a letter from Brian Roberts saying that the tarps are here to stay. That's referring to, of course, the tarps that we just saw at Super Nintendo World. So, good to get confirmation, I guess, on that. Yeah, it's, all the CEO outrage really does warm the heart. But anyway, as I was conversating with others about this, to me, I don't know. It kind of falls on deaf ears, but for maybe different reasons than Dusty's saying, right? Because we just saw, like, literally a couple days before this email was actually sent out as kind of an olive branch extension towards fans, we just saw, like, articles like in the Wall Street Journal saying how Iger played a pivotal role in the Disney coup that actually just occurred, right? And this kind of corporate Game of Thrones that actually took place there. This was, after this kind of town hall, there's been some time now that has elapsed where, things are kind of, people are hopeful that things will be done, but things have yet to be done, right? So it's kind of all those things that Theme Park Wizard made the great point. It's almost like he should have actually sent this email out right from jump rather than waiting a little bit, because it probably would have played better. And to that extent, I actually think he's correct.
Yeah, it's interesting. I disagree, not with Wizard. I actually think having this email sent out from the jump is actually a great idea. I agree with Theme Park Wizard on that. Where I disagree, though, is with Dusty. I've said it many, many times, and I know, hey, look, my park fans are going to hate me, but I look inward a lot in this fandom, right? And I love Dusty. I absolutely love Dusty. But I disagree with him here, respectfully. This sort of feels like kind of park fans tend to feel like park fans are kind of the center of the universe a little bit. And
yes,
to get that email from a CEO of this major conglomerate. Okay. Now, Bob Iger isn't just talking to park fans. I mean, this company spans sports networks, which we'll talk about in a little bit, studios, all kinds of stuff. Okay. And to take from that email, well, we're blocked out that day. Come on. It just seems a little narrow-minded in my opinion.
Of course it is, yeah. And he's coming at it from a theme park perspective, which that's where he's in. But yeah, I do agree with you. Like, expand your worldview, bro. I mean, there's a lot going on within the Walt Disney Company than just, the park experience not being up to snuff, And that's why I kind of said it's a subset, right? It's like, understand you're not the only ones here. And so and that's why I didn't take umbrage with it in so much in that regard, but just some of the things that we've been hearing about Bob Iger and some of the promises that are made. It's like, well, are these actually going to come to fruition? And if they are, if so, when? We don't really have clarity on that. Also, too, we've had a number of trade publications actually go out and who have kind of levied criticism at Bob Iger. Now that he's actually in the big chair, OG, you called me earlier saying, man, it's really interesting how the narrative has sort of changed and shifted towards a place that doesn't make Iger look as enviable or doesn't laud as much praise on him as the trades had been leading up to him coming back into the big C here. It is quite a fascinating kind of turn that we're seeing, because I remember when you and I and some others were on an island with our criticisms of Iger, right, and yet we've seen the trades come around to that idea.
Yeah, no, 100%. There's been a complete and total turnaround with the coverage of Bob Iger, because when Chapek was the CEO, all the articles were like, oh, I wish we can go back to the Bob Iger era, the Bob Iger years. It was so much better back then. And it was used as a way to sort of attack Bob Chapek. It's almost like overnight, once Bob Iger took over, the Hollywood Trades messaging took a complete turn. And it was like, well, every mess that the Walt Disney Company has right now was planted essentially under Bob Iger. Well, yeah, Dre and I have been saying that for like 3 years now, but the trades weren't saying that. And that's why I don't trust a lot of these media outlets, because the news and all this stuff changes on a dime. It's all agenda driven. It's all when it was in their best interest to praise Bob Iger, to get rid of Chapek, they were all about Bobby Iger, right? But the minute Bob Iger got back in there and their agenda or whatever they're trying to cook up changed, they turned on him on a dime. And that's why I don't believe a word a lot of these trades say. I just don't. I just don't, because I feel there's a lot of opinion and narrative building and rhetoric inserted in those things. And a lot of it was going on under Bob Chapek when he was there, and a lot of it's going on right now. It just seems very, very disingenuous. It really, really does, you know? You're on mute, sir.
I do apologize. To give people an idea of just how much the narrative has kind of shifted here, this comes to us via Deadline. Bob Iger's Christmas Carol and the Ghost of the Past, Present, and Future. Thanks. That's a terrible Photoshop job, by the way, but okay.
Yeah,
we'll get past that.
Come on.
It's a reality in a self-described, quote, a great age of anxiety that Iger himself is markedly responsible for in many ways, but rarely is held accountable for. Quote, Iger gets a lot of praise as an executive. A lot of that is well-deserved, noted an aegis and captain of the Disney vet who returned on November 20th to the CEO job he handed to Bob Chapek less than 2 years ago. Quote, but one of his greatest accomplishments may be his sidesteps, the billions in debt that came with the Fox purchase, which we've been saying ad nauseum on here, and for a reason. Going all in on streaming, hemorrhaging TV and ESPN viewership, which we will talk about in a moment, and the Succession fiascos alone would have killed any other CEO. Lauded by some as the man in the center of the room where it happens, in a nod to his beloved Hamilton, one studio insider added of Iger, quote, he's Teflon like Reagan, but left a lot of mess over the years for others to clean up, like Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
It's an interesting kind of shift, let's say. It's a pendulum shift in the kind of narrative surrounding Iger. And I just wonder myself personally if he can kind of overcome that a little bit, if he can kind of turn things around in the way that investors want, in the way that the fans want, in the way that a lot of the creatives around Hollywood want him to do. And it's a monumental task. And but he has kind of set the bar with this kind of, we will exceed even the highest expectations, as noted in his letter to fans. It's like, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? What does that entail? I guess we'll have to see.
Now, Theme Park Casual, he says it's all about the clicks. And Casual, I completely agree with you. And I was actually just about to get there with that. With the Hollywood trades, it was click city when it was Bob Chapek, because they can do all these hit pieces and people are really, really interested in Disney news. And when you have someone as controversial as Bob Chapek, it gets you the eyeballs. Honestly, just like the 45th president of the United States. All these media companies loved him because as much as they hated him on camera, they loved what he brought in terms of viewership to their network, including CNN, right? Well, once Chapek...
Listen, you're all going to miss me when I'm gone, okay? Right? That's going to happen. No.
Exactly.
They miss him.
They do. Absolutely miss him. And so... it kind of Bob Iger kind of crapped all over their gravy train when he ousted Chapek, because now you can't. What are you going to do now? If you're a big Hollywood trade, when we got Iger back, we can't trash the guy that was making us all this money. So you kind of have to pivot now and kind of be like, well, Iger's not that great either, because you got to keep that gravy train going. You can't be like, well, Iger's great, he's a wonderful guy like you were before, because then that's not sexy in journalism. You're not going to get views on that. You got to make a little drama, right? And so I think that's part of the equation here, in my opinion.
Part of it.
Yeah.
Part of it. Yes, it gets a lot of clicks to go with more casual horror Photoshop. I know.
Oh, right? Horrendous.
It's crazy. It's crazy bad. Let's take a look at this again here while we talk about
Let's do it. Oh man, this should have been I might have to change the thumbnail. I might have to change my thumbnail. This is great.
Yeah, exactly, right? I just wow. But yeah, I mean, Rob Fuzz, you're right. No drama. Iger was relatively drama free within his tenure. Certainly to the extent as you compare it to Chapek, of course. But when it comes to Iger, yeah, I think a little bit of that is popping up, right? Where it's they're definitely attracted to the clicks of the Chapek era, so they want to kind of continue on that. I think that's a little bit of that is there, but also too, I think some of the let's say pointing of fingers for how this is kind of kind of all gone, I think a lot of that can be pointed towards Iger's direction, as we have noted before on this show. We kept saying,
Absolutely.
like, a lot of Chapek's problems aren't his problems. You know,
No, they
he's trying to
weren't.
repair some issues that his predecessor left behind for him.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and now it all kind of comes back to on Iger's shoulders, and I think that's why a lot of people are kind of like, you know, one of the reasons why he came back at all is because even he himself felt a little bit of a little bit responsible for actually, you know, how all this went down and for what he left the company behind to deal with.
Now, has anyone in the chat or you, Dre, and I'm sure everyone can say yes to this, but have you ever had a time in your life that you look back on and go, wow, I wish I could do that again? If I could go back in time, I would do that totally different. Bob Iger is fortunate enough to have that opportunity. He can fix, or at least attempt to fix, maybe patch up some of the problems that he created. He can also rectify the succession issue that he also created. He has an opportunity, a real opportunity here for a second chance to do better. We'll see if he takes it, but go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, he has an opportunity here to really kind of right these wrongs. The question, though, is, you know, will he do those things? Can he do those things? Right? I mean, it's a monumental task, and I guess that kind of brings us to our next topic of discussion here, with this whole what is it? ESPN ABC thing.
Oh, well, actually, before we do that,
go ahead.
we do have one more thing. Remember the I think it was Ace. Hold on one sec.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You're right.
He says here, Ace, this is a great comment. We actually saw this. We were pre-show before we went live. Fantastic comment. Ace here says, "Oh my God, I don't mean to change subjects, but have any of you watched the Dave from Fresh Baked on his vlog about how busy it was on the first blockout day?" Now, for what Ace is talking about is Disney has blocked out every single Magic Key. Is it like for 2 weeks or something, right, Dre? From what I understand, or
yeah,
maybe a week.
It's like
something
a 2 week
that.
period. Yeah,
Week period.
Yeah,
and everyone. I mean, we've been on the channel talking a lot. Like, what are the crowds going to be when all the key holders are completely shut out of the parks? You know, I mean, look, and as much as I hate when people say this, you know, Disneyland is seen as a locals park. Is it going to be dead? Is it going to be empty with all these people having to buy a ticket to get in? Well, Dave went to the parks on that first day, and well, not so much, y'all. Not so much.
As we have seen here, it's a little bit busier than maybe people had expected. Now, we had an indication that something like this might happen because, well, as actually Dusty was pointing out in his update earlier this week, he was suggesting that the the blockout calendar was full for the 2 weeks in which pass holders were blocked out. So, and really, those slots could only be filled with one type of consumer demographic, which are day ticketers. So we kind of knew, Wizard, all favorable attendance. You're correct. We kind of knew that it was going to be busy, at least somewhat. Also, too, Dusty was kind of going over the daily patterns for guests at the parks right now, and what he was saying was kind of interesting. He was suggesting that the parks in the early kind of morning and afternoon hours were actually kind of dead, and then they would slowly ramp up as that kind of entertainment package was put on, both between the Christmas shows, the Christmas fireworks spectacular and the Christmas themed Willow Color show, and some of the associated entertainment that is put on every night by the parks. And as people actually got out of work and so forth, all those key holders would actually come down for their daily reserved slot. And well, now with those key holders off the table, so to speak, and it being all day ticket holders, well, the consumer patterns have actually changed now. Right. Where you have people who are looking to maximize their the purchase of their ticket by going there all day. Well, now you have people who are less bifurcated in their pattern and are going to go all day. So I think that's why you're seeing it so busy at a time that we really haven't experienced even a couple days ago.
And our friend, our brother, Disney Family Man 23, he says, "Hey, my OG55 family." Disney Family Man was actually going to join us today, but he's, like I said earlier in the show, he's going through some stuff over there in where he's at with the snow and the weather. So stay safe, brother. We love you, George. We absolutely love you, brother.
Oh, absolutely.
This is interesting. This is not good for key holders. If you expect things to go back to normal, right? Like in terms of like next year, if they're selling out day after day after day after day with these paid tickets, without having key holders in the park, you better believe this is going to occur next year as well. It's a given. They just make more money on this favorable mix, right? Of people, everyone buying a ticket. This is going to happen, Now, Michael Ebba here says, I do want to see how crowded the park is though on a regular weekday that's non-holiday or a time when kids are in school and when people are at work without key holders. Yeah, I mean, it would be more dead, Michael, I would think, because the key holders are more like pop in after work kind of habits, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing, in my opinion. I think that Disney can sort of utilize these key holders for those more kind of those dead periods of the calendar, and then the busier times like the holidays and maybe even summer, you block out the key holders.
Do you hear that, OG?
Uh-oh. We have Captain John D in the house. Welcome, Captain. Captain John D says they will analyze the data from the blackout and start a pattern of more blackouts. That's exactly what I'm saying, John. This is just the beginning. They're making boatloads of moolah on not having these key holders there, and it's packed, and they're all buying a ticket. This is not good for key holders. I'm telling you right now, you're going to get less access going forward. I'm calling it now.
Theme Park Casual says probably expect more blackout creep. Yes, I would agree with you, Captain John D. I absolutely agree with you right there. Expect this kind of pattern to not only continue but to expand, right? As much as it can. Now, listen. I don't think magic key holders are going away. No. Simply because getting people to be in the parks to the degree like what you're seeing on screen right now, a lot easier to achieve at the last 2 weeks of December, right? Far harder to achieve in the middle of February or somewhere like that. But you can kind of see where it's like, oh, okay, well, if people are going to pay a daily ticket price to actually walk into our parks like this, and we can saturate the parks full of them with them, right? I mean, this is a very profitable venture right here. All these people are every single one of them. Their connections to the community are kind of varied, right? So they're probably going to opt to have maybe 2 or 3 meals in the parks, right?
Exactly.
They're probably going to opt to get that those last minute Christmas presents and so forth, in which to bring home for loved ones and so forth. This is extremely profitable. So I would definitely expect this pattern to continue, expand, all that. However, I do think they still want those magic key holders in reserve. Given at least kind of future economic prospects for sure, but also to lay a foundation which they can use the pass holders as backfill for when this demand abates.
Absolutely. Crystal Ray today with a $10 donation. Thank you so much, Crystal. We do appreciate you. Thank you. And she's saying here, happy holidays to you guys and your families. Thanks for all the great content. Thank you, Crystal. Happy holidays to you and your family as well. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you so much for super chats. The support that we've received from our viewers, it's unlike no other. So thank you so much, and the community that we've created here also too.
Yes,
freaking awesome. So all things. Thank you.
Absolutely, and we got to give a shout out to Casual. Hold on, I forgot to do a Theme Park Casuals drop. 1 sec.
I don't know. Fly Casual.
There you go, Casual. He's in the chat right now.
Gotta fly casual. That's right.
There you go.
Michael, by the way, subscribe to Casual as well. He did a couple of live streams in the parks recently. He is really killing it on that game. So please give our boy a Casual shout out. If you want to, you can go ahead and drop your channel link in the chat. OG, I don't want to.
No, absolutely. Theme Park Casual, drop your YouTube channel link in the chat. Everybody watching, if you're not subscribed to him, do it. Subscribe to him. Casual is family. We love him. He makes great content. A lot of the great Knott's Berry Farm stuff, actually, from Casual. A lot of great Knott's stuff.
A lot of great Knott's stuff.
Yep.
For sure. Michael Ebba says not only are they buying tickets, but also these ticket holders are paying full price for parking and Genie Plus. Yep. Absolutely. You're probably going to see more Genie Plus sales from a group like this than you would an unfavorable mix in the form of magic key holders that are dominating the parks. So definitely an observation for sure. Theme Park Casual. I've seen several vloggers attending during the blockouts, giving Disney a nice double dip. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You had a lot of people come out earlier and say, well, I guess I'll buy a ticket just to see how it is in order to get content for their platform. So very interesting.
Can I just talk? I kind of laugh at that a little bit because like all these vloggers are key holders, right? And a lot of the vloggers have been complaining about the lack of access. And by buying a ticket when the key holders are blocked out, you're kind of working against your own self-interest a little bit there, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, you got to get that content going. You know what I'm saying? You got to, you do the things. Michael Meets Mouse. We need a Walt Disney World Railroad drop. Yes, this is the first time in almost 1,500 days since the Walt Disney World Railroad actually rode. So, we'll go ahead and play a little bit of that. This is the Disneyland Railroad. I actually don't have the Walt Disney World Railroad because, hey, guess what? Hasn't been around. So, close enough.
Yes.
For sure. So, it was last online back, I think, in late 2018. And you just think about how life has changed. In all that time. I think Solo just bombed at the box office right around the time that the Walt Disney World Railroad went down.
God, that's crazy. That's absolutely
Sears,
wild.
Yeah, Sears, Toys R Us actually filed for bankruptcy that year, right? I had a list. Let me see if I can find my list. Think about who was president at that time. Think about the Queen still being with us and still in power at that time. I know my life is very different the last time the Walt Disney World Railroad actually ran. Right. And it is crazy how much time has actually elapsed. It is mind-boggling. No,
it's been down for an extremely long time. And it had to be with the Tron construction and what have you, but I don't know. I mean, what was it, 4 years? Seems like a little excessive.
Rick Scott was governor of Florida. Chapek was Parks and Research chairman. Galaxy's Edge was still under construction. Lasseter had just left the company. All these things right around the time that the Walt Disney World Railroad actually went down. So it's been quite a bit here, folks. But I'm glad to see it is back. Some people have asked us about our opinions about a couple of things. Now, I gave maybe a scathing review of what we saw with the with the Tron tunnel and so forth, as some people are characterizing it as. OG, what was your take on that
Tron
section?
tunnel?
Yeah,
nothing special. I mean, honestly, it's a cement tunnel, basically, right? I mean, that's kind of what I got of it. Nothing too incredible. Not the greatest show. Look, the Disneyland Railroad, nothing comes close to it. I'm sorry, Floridians. I'm sorry, but the Disneyland Railroad is the GOAT. It is the absolute GOAT.
Yeah,
it just is.
I do agree. I believe it was the Candid Camper asked our thoughts on it. Thoughts on the Tron Tunnel. I said, by Tron Tunnel, do you mean the scantily themed and utilitarian bunker-like corridor with some windows and music? underwhelming, but we knew that would be the case given the leaks. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear that they weren't going to do much, which was unfortunate. Could have been highly themed and a showcase for new technologies as the original Tron tunnel was. And I always think back to like the People Mover Tron tunnel and how that was just back in the day. That was a pretty mind-blowing thing. I mean, you had projections and all of that. You had some great effects there. I do like that they play the music and so forth. And I was listening. I haven't seen the whole ride through of the new Walt Disney World Railroad, but I was hearing some like the various clips that I did see, like audio cues from certain characters as integrated onto the railroad. Some great audio, soundscapes that were created, music integration and all of that. I mean, they really have done as much as they possibly could, given the let's say lack of things to see as we see from the Disneyland Railroad. So that I was at least it was at least heartwarming to see that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it's back, and I'm really happy for Florida for getting Tron. I mean, that looks like an incredible attraction. Overall, really positive stuff happening. Yeah, they could have went a little further with the tunnel than they did. A lot of these companies, I'm telling you, they're cutting back. Like you said earlier, Theme Park Wizard, he took a picture of Super Nintendo World. Some of the tarps over there that they're installing look really cheap. I think this is kind of the direction we're going in. We're going to get this stuff, and there's going to be these like little signs of cuts here and there, whether it's Disney, Universal, or whatever. It's unfortunate. It really is,
As these kind of economic conditions kind of set in, I do think we're going to see a slowdown in, let's say, what does that call it? Not extra spending, but what is it? Casual spend, discretionary spending, right? So that's gonna affect Disney, I think, a lot. And I think you'll see some changes in rationalization when it comes to costs for these various parks, their various divisions, and so forth. But go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, Ken Davis is actually segueing for us. ABC, ESPN going to stay with Disney Networks. Well, we're going to talk about that right now, Ken Davis. We have the story up. Let me go ahead and pull that up, and we'll get started here. So this was from the Hollywood Reporter. A Disney analyst is saying spinning off ESPN and ABC is the best path forward. Okay, this is from an analyst or an investor from Wells Fargo, Stephen Cahill. What are your thoughts? Yes. Did you read this, Trey? What are your thoughts on this prospect of them kind of dumping ESPN and ABC?
I think it's a very kind of interesting thing. Stephen writes here, quote, "We think Bob Iger is returning to Disney to make big changes. Spinning off ESPN ABC is the best path forward, and we see it as a reasonable, probable late 23 event." Wells Fargo analyst Stephen Cahill opened a Tuesday report on the Walt Disney Company, led again by Bob Iger as CEO, with a big call that is certain to cause debate. Let's see. In the near term, Cahill expects Iger and his team to focus on content and cost rationalization, which is what I was referring to before. Quote, "However, over the longer term, we expect a deeper think on portfolio reshaping. Recall that Iger built Disney into what it is today, a franchise IP leader with global scale. ESPN, traditionally the cash cow, is neither owned IP nor global the way the rest of that Disney is. With linear and sports trends diverging from core IP, we think severing the company is increasingly logical." Sorry, I had to cough. So a lot of text there. let's go ahead and break it down a little bit. So, what he's referring to when it comes to owned. So ESPN is only 80% owned by the Walt Disney Company, whereas the other 20% is owned by the Hearst Corporation. So it isn't even fully owned by Disney. Also, too, they talk about global scale. I think there's a number of reasons why this might be attractive to Disney and to investors. And they cited many reasons. One of these being global scale. What they're referring to is ESPN's not necessarily a global brand in the same way some of their other platforms are, and it's very much geared towards heavily geared towards, I should say, the North American domestic market. And so, why, when it's an asset right now, get it, sell it off while the getting's good, kind of thing, is kind of the rationalization. But they also talk about the lack of linear reach, right? So I think, who was it who made a video on this? OG, remind me.
Campia.
Yeah, John Campia. Sorry, I couldn't. I got a lot of. Okay. John Campia recently made a video about this. So some of these stats and so forth he spoke about on his show, but he was talking about the lack of linear reach. So I guess that's dropped by 30% or more in the last couple of years, which I hadn't really heard of. I had heard that cutting the cord has significantly downsized their overall market reach, but I didn't know it was to that extent. So it's like, okay, well, this is still an asset that you can still spin off that has value, although under the Walt Disney Company, it has less value than it did. And this is where activist investor Dan Loeb was talking about. He was saying that, should, like, to turn ESPN into a really heavy hitter brand, can it actually be done under the Walt Disney Company, where you have this seesawing between making ESPN successful, and yet it still has to be under the umbrella of the Walt Disney Company? It doesn't make sense to be part of somebody else's portfolio, right? There's also, there's been some separation in that area, this kind of intentional demarcation by Disney in order to kind of have it be a kind of a separate entity from Disney, and yet so that kind of cross pollination or that synergy, there's what is it, less potential there, let's say. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I think analysts are thinking along these lines. They talk about sports betting and how this is kind of one of the areas in which being under the Disney banner might actually be a deficit to Disney, in that, can you turn sports betting into something that is as profitable as it could be under the Disney brand, right? And I would kind of agree that is one of the things that could potentially hold it back. But I actually did see some value in what Chapek was actually saying about this, and that, like, hey, look, listen, this is kind of a separate entity, right? It doesn't have that same kind of that brand kind of crossover with Disney in totality, right? And so I think the market thinks of ESPN differently. I know I've had this conversation before where I'll tell people, yeah, ESPN's owned by Disney, and they just like, whoa, I didn't know that. And it's like, well, yeah, it is. So can you kind of leverage that in order to make sports gambling work? I think you can. And I do agree with Chapek in that, sports aficionados, right? This is what they kind of expect in order to interact with their pastime or passion, right? So sports gambling should be part of that, but is Bob Iger going to go in that direction? I think that's also one of the things that this Wells Fargo analyst was actually talking about. And the last was competition. But before I get to that, OG, what do you think about that so far?
Well, the sports betting thing, it reminds me of Deadpool. I know people are in the chat are like, what, is this guy fucking crazy? It reminds me of Deadpool. When Disney acquired Fox, right? What was the first thing that Deadpool fans and Marvel fans pretty much were concerned about? Are they going to Disneyfy or water down Deadpool? Disney's buying this property. Are they going to alter this property that we love, right? And Disney gave assurances, we will not do that, yada, yada, yada. I see ESPN as kind of a similar thing, okay? They're buying a sports network, okay? If you're going to buy a sports network, then you have to play within the perimeter of the sports world. Yeah. And sports betting is part of that world. Sure. It's not okay, in my opinion, for Disney to buy something and then go ahead and Disneyfy it, right? If you're going to buy it and own it, you got to do what's best for that particular thing. So sports betting works for the ESPN sports culture. It absolutely works. It's absolutely fine. Now, if Disney doesn't want to get into that, then maybe they should spin it off get rid of it. No, look, Michael Eisner was on this kind of kick for a long time, getting Disney into all this sports stuff. Remember, they created the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, and then they bought the Anaheim Angels, and they got ESPN. It was all this extra stuff that kind of took Disney's eye off the ball. And this ESPN thing is definitely a remnant of that Eisner era. So maybe it is time to get rid of it. But if they're going to keep it, then you got to play by the rules and the culture of that sports community and industry. And sports betting is part of that equation. Now, personally, in my opinion, I think ESPN seems more valuable because of sports betting and all that than something like ABC. ABC feels increasingly irrelevant. I mean, I know they have the big ad revenue coming in with the big network or whatever, but I don't know. I think with streaming and everything, and how technology is changing with how people view this content like television, I don't know. I would probably offload ABC and maybe keep ESPN. If I were to offload anything, I think ABC would be my first contender. That's kind of where I'm at right now. But again, I'm not like this Wells Fargo guy. Probably understand. I mean, he does. He understands way more about finance than I do. I'm just from a fan perspective and like what kind of is relevant right now and what's kind of. I think ESPN is kind of dying like the rest of network TV. I think ESPN has more potential overall.
Oh, ESPN has far more potential, and those sports rights and the viewers that actually are directed towards ESPN's way. I mean, those are still extremely profitable. It's just I think this Wall Street analyst was suggesting, is it still as profitable a venture as it was before, especially as this cord cutting continues. The article goes on to say, separating ESPN and ABC, quote, would leave remaining Disney as an attractive pure play IP company, the Wells Fargo expert emphasized. Quote, we also think investors are increasingly put off by trying to determine how fast linear networks, most of which is ESPN and ABC, is declining as direct-to-consumer DTC profits improve. The seesaw creates a constant headache. Spinning ESPN and ABC provides price discovery for the asset at a Fox-esque multiple of 6 to 7 times enterprise value / earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, or EBITDA, and then lets remaining Disney be more of a pure play on global IP and streaming. As people kind of cord cut, is it something that Disney wants to continually invest in? I mean, we've seen them, to your point, OG, become, at least ABC, become a little bit more irrelevant. And we saw, I think, the most prominent manifestation of that in the form of, Dancing with the Stars, going from ABC, which it had been there for, I mean, that had been a prime time golden child for years. What is the term I'm looking for? It had been a prominent feature on ABC for so many years, and yet you're seeing that taken off that platform and actually put onto Disney Plus. That was I got to be honest, that was a surprising move for me. So you could already tell that maybe they were thinking to get out of the linear network game. And maybe ABC is and a severance of it as a result of that. It's interesting because I have been hearing Disney wanting to get out of the linear network game for some time now, for almost about 10 years, actually. I remember comments before from Bob Iger saying, hey, you want to be ahead of this curve, not be behind it, right? And as the market kind of changes, we're going to have to look at segments of our business that have been legacy that, that had been previously, major brands or IPs as part of our business portfolio that we might have to separate ourselves from. And I think this kind of talk about separating or spinning off ESPN and ABC is a reflection of that. When it comes to the competition side, however, for ESPN, this is why it could become a money suck rather than a great formidable asset for Disney. Amazon recently signed a 11-year deal for exclusive Thursday Night Football rights. So that's about $1 billion a year or $80 million per game. Okay. Wow. That's a huge amount of capital investment invested in like Thursday Night Football is not even like the one of the bigger primetime games that you can have, and yet we've seen Amazon pour huge amounts of capital in order to get those rights. And then just, I believe it was yesterday or early this morning, we heard that Google signs a $2 billion per season deal for NFL Sunday Ticket, which is a big deal. Okay.
Yeah.
I believe it was John Campea who was like, yeah, I mean, this is why DirecTV is pretty much the only thing keeping them in business. I would tend to agree. DirecTV was previously paying about $1.5 billion per season, and they had those rights since 1994.
Wow.
So this is a big shift here, because you had to have a cable or satellite subscription with DirecTV even in order to even get access to this. And yet now it's going to be on YouTube TV or YouTube Primetime. I mean, we're seeing these huge tech companies with endless amounts of capital invest ungodly amounts of money into these these sports broadcasting rights, these leagues. And does Disney still want to play in that competitive space when they have their own foibles when it comes to capital investment in the form of DTC, right?
Right.
You have huge amounts of money that they are competing with, like, the venture capital from Netflix or, Amazon. I mean, they're just pouring, tens of millions, perhaps even billions and billions of dollars into content for their DTC side. Do they want to now compete along those same lines with their sports network? That's a big financial debt there, or responsibility. And then I can see why it's like, okay, well, maybe let this become somebody else's problem. Somebody like Netflix, for example.
No, 100%. Captain John D here says ABC is an in-house marketing arm for Disney and a major news outlet. The reach of that arm is the value. Their biggest competitor also owns a major news outlet. I can't see the strategy in selling it. John D makes a valid point here.
Yeah,
he absolutely does. I mean, their biggest competitor being Comcast Universal, they own NBC, and they have NBC, MSNBC, or should we say MSDNC? No,
listen, CNN, MSDNC. Okay, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. All right, just ask Sean Hannity; he'll tell you all about it. Just ask him. Tremendous loss, tremendous. Now, yes. So I always have to do my Trump, but it's an interesting thing, right?
Point, yeah.
I kind of agree with Captain John D.
Yeah.
I don't really see the value in getting rid of necessarily ABC. Like, I don't see them as like ABC, ESPN as a package deal.
Right.
Now, this analyst is saying that they're kind of intrinsically linked, or they're inseparable or inseverable, because I guess there's some cross-pollination between the two. Sometimes we'll see sports programming on ABC as well under the ESPN, branding. And it's like, well, now it's packaged. And it's like, I don't quite see that. I think you could segment them off, right? I think you could spin off ESPN without necessarily having ABC included. And maybe you separate yourself from you separate them for a potential ABC deal down the line, right? When it becomes maybe less advantageous to actually have them on. But I kind of agree with John D. Like, there are some benefits from having ABC and even ESPN for that matter within the Disney company. ESPN is definitely a driver for their subscription services, for example.
Now, do you think, because there's a lot of talk on the street, Wall Street, right? A lot of it's heating up. You see a lot of these analysts like this Wells Fargo guy, and just all these CNBC pundits and all these articles written about this. There seems to be a lot of pressure for Disney to make a decision on ABC and ESPN, especially ESPN. If Disney doesn't act on that, if Disney doesn't spin them off or sell them or whatever, is it going to hurt them? Like, in terms of like from how the investment community sees Disney, because it seems like from where I stand, the investment community is like almost expecting them to do it, and they're kind of nudging them along, like, hey Disney, is that a problem if they don't sell it? And all these investors are kind of like, well, we kind of want you to.
Even Campy and some of the others were alluding to the fact that maybe this is being put out there some of the noise regarding this, right, is actually coming from Disney themselves, in that they're pursuing something like this. I think from the investment community, they want to turn around. They want to turn around now. And I think the only way they see that is actually spinning off some of these assets that Disney still has as kind of a quick fix kind of thing. I'm less enthusiastic about that because I do think ESPN, even ABC to a certain degree, have long-term shareholder value. I don't know. I'm not quite seeing the immediate benefit of reducing their portfolio. The only reason why they might is to get that is to provide themselves the capital in order to right the ship in other ways. I do think the investment community wants them to be kind of investing in their IPs, in their DCC division, and so forth. Do they necessarily need to do that with sports as well? This is kind of where a lot of this is coming from.
So if they were to offload, let's say there's this kind of need to offload something to sort of get a little leaner.
Yeah.
Could you see
and
maybe
to provide them cash?
To provide cash, like if you had to cut, would you maybe sell Hulu, or like where would you, if not ABC and ESPN, would you maybe go for Hulu, or maybe would you kind of surgically remove some stuff from Fox and sell off some of the Fox stuff that you don't need? Because Fox has a lot of 70 billion, and they got a lot of stuff they don't even need. I mean, to be quite honest, is that the route you go?
I don't know. I suppose there are portions of the company that you can spin off, and I can see why, if you're like dead set on spinning something off, I can see why ESPN, ABC are the easy targets.
Yeah.
ESPN, not a global brand, so it's like, is there a path forward to grow under that brand? I can kind of see what they're saying about that. I don't know. Maybe they're linear networks, right? Because OG, even from your dealings on Twitter, that less people are like engaged with their linear networks overall.
Yeah.
Like,
True.
Freeform and Disney Channel and all that. They'd be kind of becoming sidelined by the digital age, let's say. And a lot of people have been cutting the cord or pulling back on their TV viewing habits, right? Now, I understand that is still a very profitable venture when it comes to the ad revenue that brings in, but I don't know. Can you duplicate that on your DTC side? For example,
right.
I believe you probably could, but I kind of like Chapek's idea of like, how can we make these ventures more profitable? Can we do sports betting in house,
right?
And not have sell off ESPN to have somebody else do it, right? Can we do it on our side? I think you can, but you have to be really strategic about it, and that's going to be the challenge. We did hear that Bob Iger himself said that, hey, we have a lot of assets in house when talking about the prospect of acquisitions. But the way I kind of saw that was, okay, these are assets that Iger, I think, is open to playing around with and seeing if there are potential buyers for some of these things as he kind of rights that ship. I can't say that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, not to interrupt, but to your point, he even mentions in that same kind of quote that while they're not looking to sell anything, nothing is forever. He left he left the door open for it.
Oh, absolutely. And people have speculated, does that include Candle Media, right? Would you want to bring that into the fold in order to get Kevin Meyer and Tom Staggs back on board, right? We've heard that before as well. But man, to separate themselves from those networks now.
Well, and then you got also
a tough thing.
And then you also have to think Disney's size makes it a tough acquisition target, right? There's only so many companies that can afford to put an offer on Disney, like an Apple maybe, or maybe even an Amazon, but Disney's a pretty big whale, Now, when you offload, if you were to offload ABC and you were to offload ESPN, now you're making a smaller Walt Disney company. You're essentially inviting you're making it more attractive to purchase now because it's smaller. It'll be, and that was one of the things Michael Eisner, I think, really did after that whole mess in the mid 80s when the sharks were kind of circling the company looking to buy it off in pieces, right?
Yeah.
Those hostile takeover attempts. I think Michael Eisner, one of the big motivating factors for him to kind of like bulk up the company and grow was to make
happening again.
Exactly. And now you're going to sell off some of that stuff. It does open yourself up to acquisitions. And I tell you, I don't want Disney owned by anybody. I mean, I guess if we had to have it, I guess Apple would probably be the best bet because Apple is kind of a premium brand as well. And they are kind of quality focused. But I don't know. I haven't really been in love with what Tim Cook has done with Apple. I think he's been kind of riding coattails ever since Steve Jobs passed away. You know, I mean, there's only so many times you can change the color of the iPhone. You know, how many different shades of rose gold we're gonna need, Tim? You know, he hasn't really innovated in a long time. So, but I guess if I had to swallow that pill, I guess Apple would be the sugar to make that medicine go down, I guess a little bit, but it still wouldn't be my favorite. I still want Disney to be a standalone company. It's one of the last, I think it is the last studio actually that is, that hasn't been acquired yet. So it would be sad to lose it.
Yes, and it's really fascinating because I remember a time when Brian Roberts himself, CEO of Comcast, was attempting to purchase Disney outright. This was like 20 years ago.
2005, I think.
Outlined.
Or
yeah, something like that.
On there.
Something like that. Yeah. It's outlined in I think the Disney War, the famous book there that goes into it, right? And yeah, I mean, Comcast tried to acquire Disney solely for the ESPN rights. That's all they wanted, or the thing they wanted most. And Eisner was able to fend that off right there at the very tail end of his career at the Walt Disney Company. I just think it's kind of fascinating how now it's like, oh, okay, we can just spin this off now. we've lost all value in this, But to echo what is it? Captain John D was actually saying about ABC's synergistic potential, right, and how it's a promotional tool for the actual brand itself. I do think that also extends to ESPN itself. John Campea made a very poignant point in that a lot of the big trailer drops that had actually occurred for Disney's hit films, like The Force Awakens, like The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, even recently, as we actually saw on the show, as I had a Monday Night Football game playing on a side screen, that Avatar 2 was heavily promoted using that methodology, right? Because you can, for all the Disney fans, they're already on board with those films. But for kind of the normies, right, who are just, sitting back watching a football game, you can promote your product on that platform as well. And they have. So that does have value within the company's portfolio. Would they want to remove themselves from that? Man, yeah. Like Captain John Diaz has said multiple times on here, I can't quite see that, at least not right now. I think there is value from which the company can still benefit from in these brands.
Absolutely. And before we pivot to Avatar: Way of Water, friend of the channel, the Rogue Attraction. By the way, if you're not subscribed to Rogue Attraction, he is fantastic. Another parks guy. A lot of great content. He's in Florida, so you're getting Walt Disney World stuff. But check him out on YouTube. He's fantastic. And on Twitter. But Rogue is saying here, thoughts on them not changing the splash audio on the Walt Disney World Railroad. Now, I did not know that.
Yeah. So some people were talking about that, right? Woo. Now, Rogue Attraction, you're suggesting that the same splash audio existed, but before the refurb that it does now? Because that indicates to me they haven't changed that for a reason, right? Why re-record audio talking about Splash Mountain when you can just use old audio and replace it with the relevant Tiana's Bayou Adventure audio when that actually comes online. So I don't know if that necessarily goes along with what the conversation out there is. However, I will say it is interesting how the audio is included, right?
Yeah.
But WW Pro, I think, talked about this as well. He was suggesting that, hey, look, listen. Oh, they could have advertised the ride, though. Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
That's true,
no,
Rogue.
That's true.
That's true. It's a good point. Great point. WW Pro was talking about how, hey, don't get it twisted. Tiana is still coming and all that, and this audio that was recorded for this spiel was probably done at probably an earlier date, right? Because we've seen delays in the Walt Disney World Railroad and Tron projects that have kept the railroad inoperable for all this time. Don't be surprised if this audio was recorded at a time when Splash Mountain wasn't currently on the table for its reimagining. So I thought that was an interesting point as well.
Yeah, and Michael Meets the Mouse, friend of the channel. He actually he's a cast member over at Walt Disney World. Yeah, and he's saying it is new audio.
It is new audio.
Yeah, and it still mentions Splash Mountain. So
yep.
You're probably right, Dre. It's probably recorded a long time ago, and I'm sure they'll update it once Tiana comes in.
I think so, and part of the reason I think from the company's perspective, because I've seen this like with the Disneyland Railroad, how they like re-recorded all of it. They didn't necessarily need to do that, but thinking about it logically, it's like, oh, okay, they re-recorded all the audio because probably in order to create kind of this this kind of flexible framework, this kind of modular framework in which to add in audio snippets for new stuff as it pops off with a voice actor who can be around for a dozen years or whatever. So that also too plays into these decisions as well. Showcase of Wishes, you're right. Maybe it was recorded 4 years ago. Yeah, that's possible. I mean, I don't really know. Theme Park Casual, it's been 84 years. Showcase of Wishes, seriously? Yeah. I mean, it has been a long, long time. 1,500 days. 1,500 days. Where were you 1,500 days ago? That's the big question right now with this whole thing, because it is a remarkable amount of time. Showcase of Wishes, surprised it didn't include the dinosaur audio. Yeah. I do know that the Walt Disney World Railroad did undergo a massive facelift and infrastructural improvements similar to those that were made for the Disneyland Railroad when that went down for its extended period of time for the construction of Galaxy's Edge. Walt Disney World operators were smart enough in order to invest in their Walt Disney World Railroad with that extended downtime. A little bit longer than they think they anticipated. But it is kind of sad to see that more effort wasn't applied towards various aspects of their railroad, right? I think Disneyland Railroad has been the envy of the Disney park world because of how many things that you can actually see along its track. Unfortunately, Walt Disney World remains a little barren.
Well, the Disneyland Railroad is quintessential Disneyland, and it really is like a love letter to the park itself. And it's just, my God, I love that. I love that railroad.
I always
I always
make a note of it. Always make a note of it. If I'm staying in the parks late or whatever, got to get that last ride around the railroad itself. You always got to do that last. They have a term for it, and I can't think of it right now.
The Grand Circle Tour.
Yes, the Grand Circle Tour, but it's a sweeper train. Sweeper train, that's what they call it. Where they sweep up the remaining guests out of the park, right? It's always a pleasure to kind of either start your day or end your day on the Walt Disney World Railroad, because it's, like you said, OG, a quintessential Disneyland experience.
It really is. And Michael Meets Mouse says, I want to hear Showcase's thoughts on the new bricks at Center Street. Oh, now for those, this is kind of an inside joke. Michael Meets Mouse, our buddy Showcase, who's in the chat right now, he hates the new brick trend, right? Sorry about that. He hates this new brick trend that they're replacing all the cement with bricks. In Disneyland, we got bricks for days. Florida, not as much. Not as much.
Now, I will say, I'm going to go ahead and look this up here. So, OG, if you can fill in the dead time at least a little bit. The bricks, on Center Street is not a new thing. It is a very, very old thing that has existed since the park opened in October 1st in 1971, which I think people may have forgotten with this newly placed emphasis on Center Street. So I think from that standpoint, Showcase, if I'm speaking for you, please correct me, but maybe as the traditionalist that Showcase is, maybe he has some appreciation for that. Maybe, I don't know, possibly to offset his his brick bias or anti-brick bias, let's say. I don't know, maybe.
And he says awfully close to Main Street. Let's keep them off Main Street. I know they're encroaching. They're getting really close. Showcase, really close. It's not like out here at Disneyland. We got bricks on top of bricks. We got bricks going everywhere. We got them on the buildings. We got them on the walls. We got them everywhere. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. You want me to share your screen, Dre?
No, it's okay. I can't. Unfortunately, I cannot find it, which is really unfortunate. But yes, I can. If you go back into old imagery of Center Street, those bricks were there. But okay, Showcase, Center Street, okay, not Main Street, USA though.
There we go.
Yeah, from Showcase's standpoint, it doesn't necessarily invoke a small kind of hometown-ish feel with the bricks on Main Street. And look, I am sympathetic to the anti-brick argument, at least a little bit, right? So if you look at Hong Kong Disneyland, for example, way too much brick. It just is overpowering. It's not a good look. I think Disneyland Paris does it slightly better with the distinct tone of bricks that they actually selected for Main Street. But slurry days in Walt Disney World.
Yeah, slurry for days.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not necessarily. There is. You can see this with the asphalt, right, and how it interacts with the kind of trolley car lines, the trolley car rails. Let's say, like it cracks up a lot nearest those, and I think. Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom has like big metal plates in some areas in order to prevent that and stuff, which doesn't look that great either. I think Disneyland, in their kind of hybrid of, using bricks but only kind of keeping them around the trolley car lines, I think that was a good move, and I do think it actually improves the look of the park.
Yeah, no, I do too. I actually like the bricks. My issue with the cement or whatever is that like it looks good when you rip it all up and you do it all at once and it's one like cohesive piece. The issue though is that when you're going in there and you're like how they kind of patch it up, right? Like, oh, you get a crack in it. So Disney goes in and they patch it up. It never ages the same. So you get a bunch of patchwork cement. It's really unsightly. And I think with the bricks, you kind of avoid that problem a little bit. You can just replace a brick and put it in there. And it just kind of blends in better. I'm just being a nerd going way too deep into it, but that's just kind of how I feel. I feel like when with the cement, with the cracks and the patching, I don't know. It looks a little unsightly. In my opinion. Yeah,
it can. And so, I don't know. I'm not such an anti-brick guy. I will say though, Hong Kong, their brickwork on their Main Street looks horrendous. I don't want that to come by any means. But I think Disneyland has a nice flavor to it too.
Absolutely. Should we pivot to the Way of Water?
Yes, we can do that. Let me see here. Okay, so I was able to see it. I saw it Thursday, and I'll just play you some B-roll here. This comes from to us from Explained, so I'll give them credit here for their footage. But this is quite the remarkable film. This is unlike any film I've ever quite seen. So I understand what some reviewers were saying in that this is a very unique film, and yes, it absolutely is. This is definitely like WW Pro was actually saying, this is a film of excess, and I do think that is correct. It's a film standpoint, there is some flaws. There are some kind of character motivations that are a little bit perplexing, like, why is this person doing this thing in this moment? This doesn't quite make sense or whatever. But the characters themselves are a lot more, let's say, fleshed out than they were in the original Avatar, right? New characters are actually introduced, and they're actually introduced quite well, I think, in this story. There is this kind of this kind of familial dynamic that is really, really profound and interesting, right? There is some nice character development amongst the characters and so forth. Still can't remember any names, which is funny. But there's a lot of them in here. People, we talked about a lot about the running time going into this film and how it was like 3 hours, and now that's a lot, and it is, but it never felt too long. Felt maybe a little long, but bizarrely, I would have actually been open to seeing a longer cut of this film, which is quite interesting. There were some things that even with that 3 hour runtime felt rushed, which is quite something. So, I mean, yes, there are some flaws in that aspect, but what makes up for a lot of that is what you're seeing on screen right now, gorgeous. The visuals, which is absolutely, they are incredible. They are absolutely gorgeous. And I won't get too technical with those yet because OG and I are planning for a video in which I bring my brother along, who is an aspiring VFX artist himself, who could actually describe on a very technical level what you're actually seeing with The Way of Water and why it is such a gorgeous film that reviewers are praising it for being, but will actually provide the detail in which why that is the case. So I think it's going to be very interesting.
Now, hold your thought. We're going to come right back to Avatar, but we got a super chat from Mr. Captain John D. Go ahead and play the audio. John D. We got. There we go. There we go. He says bricks, cement, grass. That is why I'm here. Yes, we did a whole video. Actually, I think we did 2 videos, like an hour long each on the fake grass at Disneyland. I mean, come on. We're doing it over here. We're doing it.
Yeah, I believe the first one was 40 minutes and the second one was 20 minutes on the grass subject. So yes, we have done an hour on grass on this channel that you're watching right here. This is why you come to OG55 for the hard hitting stuff, right? For things that nobody will actually provide you insight on, and we will break it all down in excruciating detail.
Yes, we get in there with the microscope looking at the fake grass. Look at they weaved in even brown pieces of grass into the fake grass, and all this stuff. And we got into the chemicals and all that kind of stuff. It was great.
That's it. Hope to do another video on bricks. That would be interesting. Showcase of witches. Yes. Captain John D. Love the grass talk. Yep. The grass talk is if there's one thing that we want the channel to be remembered for, it's probably the grass. Yeah.
those are some great videos. Showcase. I love. Show. He DMs me every now and then. I want more fake grass videos. I'm like, okay. We'll get it. We'll get it out. So fantastic. But thank you again, Captain. Appreciate all your support as always. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, brother.
No, for sure. Interesting too, use of technology. So yeah, they did film with mocap suits underwater, which is insane. Which is wow. That's something that I've never even heard of actually happening before. And you do actually see that extra effort on screen. I mean, it does look completely mesmerizing. From what I understand, the actors had to endure training to actually stay below the water for extended periods of time and to fight their baser instincts in order to give a good performance for their faces and so forth. Some actors staying underwater for as long as like 6 to 7 minutes, which is insane without taking a breath of air. All that effort applied, you do actually see it show up on film, which is quite interesting. Sigourney Weaver actually is in this film and plays somebody completely different from her as the actress, which she actually talked about during the production of the original Avatar back in 2009. She actually gave this interview saying like, hey, the mocap thing is really cool because I can play any character possible. I can play an alien. I can play somebody younger. I can play somebody, of these various types that I hadn't been able to play before. And they do play on that with The Way of Water for sure. one of the features that was part of this film. I don't know if any of you guys have heard about this kind of high frame rate thing where you have a cinematic film for going on decades now has been always filmed at 24 frames per second, and it's kind of it's something that's kind of arbitrary, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of become an industry standard. Well, in this film, James Cameron plays around with that idea in order to have a higher frame rate than traditional cinematic films have featured before. And we've seen a little bit of that with like the Hobbit franchise and so forth, but he uses it in very interesting ways here, and he actually has a variable refresh rate in which the entire film isn't at a higher frame rate. I believe he says 48 frames per second. Some of it's at 24, some of it's at 48, and it changes between the two. For the 3D sequences underwater, like, that is an incredible use of that technology, and probably something to where I would like limit it to that usage, right? Where they're underwater and it's 3D and all that.
Yeah.
However, he uses it in other ways. Portions of like the Banshee flyover sequences, part of the action sequences and so forth, and it does not necessarily benefit in those instances. In fact, some of it actually detracts. So maybe using that kind of high frame rate technology was a little bit used a little bit too liberally. I would have stepped it back a lot because it does get distracting. In one moment, actually, in the film, theme park wizard and I were having a conversation about this, and he actually had the same thing that I had, which was there was a shot where you're, kind of looking out into space from the vantage point of inside of a spaceship, and so you're seeing the ship rotate, the planets outside rotate, the camera rotate, and it's in 3D and it's with a high frame rate. I actually got like nauseous. Which was the first time I've actually had that reaction from seeing a 3D film stationary. This wasn't like there wasn't any movement in the theater, so that was surprising. I never had that experience before. But look, a very interesting showcase of technology, the most technologically advanced film that I had ever seen. The render time on this must have been years because some of these visuals look absolutely insane. They look absolutely incredible. I'm still thinking about it, which, tells you that it's at least an impactful film, if nothing else.
Well, and that's what I was saying to you today is that when you saw the movie, you came back, and I know you very well. Dre and I, for those in the chat, Dre and I are really, really close in real life. We're on the phone constantly. Okay, we're always talking. And when you called me, and I could just tell, because I know you very well, I could tell by the way you were talking about this film, you really dug it. I even asked you. I said, I from what I can kind of gather, this film made an impact on you, and you were like, yeah, absolutely. And that's interesting. That's like. And we talked to Family Man, Family Man 23 about the film, and he liked it. I don't think he was like super over the moon with it, but but I feel like it hit you a little harder. I feel like you really, really got it hit you in the gut more than Family Man,
Yeah, it did. And look, I have a very distinct appreciation for old school filmmaking, right? I love the 70 millimeter IMAX camera usage like you would see in a Christopher Nolan production, right? I love the practical filmmaking that you would experience from something like Top Gun Maverick, for example, where they had to shove like 6 IMAX cameras and like a fighter jet, and you're getting those real reactions from the actors as they actually, their body encounters those aerial maneuvers like you see in that film. Like, I love all that stuff. I have, the deepest appreciation for that, but I also appreciate it from like a technical standpoint for these kind of very kind of event fantasy epics, very CGI driven films. Like, I have an appreciation for those too, and it's definitely of that ilk. And this is the greatest technological showcase and one of the most beautiful films I'd ever seen on that level. And it shows up. As I was going back and forth with my brother, we were kind of coming to the conclusion that the last battle sequence is much more personal. It's much more, condensed, right? It's the the last battle sequence in the original 2009 Avatar was huge in scale, just massive in scope. This one's a lot more. It's a lot more, I don't know, smaller in scope, and I believe that was an intentional decision to make it a more personalized film. So I can kind of see where it was like, okay, if you expand this scale and scope out, this can become ridiculous, you know, and maybe that's what James Cameron is intending for future Avatar films to actually, do. So I'm interested in it from that level. And honestly, coming out of this film, I do want to see more. I'm up for seeing more. And whether it be updates to Animal Kingdom for Avatar 2, I think there will. I think the Imagineers have wanted to expand the world of Pandora as it exists in the Animal Kingdom for quite some time. It's actually been James Cameron who has been kind of pushing back and saying, well, let's wait for these other films to come out so that we can have new things in which to pull from. Risky thing because, you know, you kind of want to build on the most successful film in the franchise, right? And we know that Avatar 1 is successful. Why would we necessarily wait for 2 to come out? That has a chance of being less successful. Right? Why wouldn't we focus our attention on the most successful film in the franchise? I do understand that argument and debate, but it's interesting. So James Cameron has made some made some statements, like for example, the Flight of Passage, right, and how that could be easily adapted for for these kind of underwater scenes that we see in Avatar: The Way of Water. And watching the film, I did kind of look out for that, and he is 100% accurate. You can definitely adapt that technology for a Way of Water version of that attraction, and I do think it would be absolutely spectacular. I don't know how you're supposed to duplicate the effect of water being around you, right? As you submerge and so forth. That's going to be an interesting process to see. But the one thing I was thinking about, OG, and something that I haven't seen anybody talk about. In this film, we see some of the characters from the original Avatar. They are forced to migrate to a different part of Pandora, a more more oceanic portion of Pandora. And we see this kind of village and how it outcrops over the ocean and so forth, right? That right there, to me, I don't really see that necessarily benefiting Animal Kingdom as much as it might Tokyo Disney Sea. That's where I think we might have some integration regarding the Avatar franchise into the parks. Certainly, there probably will be an expansion of Animal Kingdom, but I think Tokyo is kind of like, hey, how can we get Avatar into our parks that makes sense? This is the route to do that.
Yeah, and Captain John D says, great takes on the film, Dre. Do you think they can transfer to Flight of Passage ride system? And you kind of touched upon that a little bit, but...
Yeah, absolutely can. It's 1-to-1. There are creatures like the Banshees, but underwater variations of them. That's right in line there, and I don't think it would take that much effort, to be honest. The Flight of Passage name might need to change, and that kind of whole thing. But I don't think the experience would necessarily have to be altered to a significant degree in order to incorporate this kind of stuff. Wait, too many spoilers? I didn't know. I was trying to stay off the spoilers. I do apologize, Jay Pike. I tried to. I really did try to not spoil anything at all. I am sorry, guys. Some people were talking about the kind of versions of the film that you can see. I'll go into that in a moment. OG, what were you gonna say?
No, I think this is interesting. I'm not a big Avatar person, to be quite honest. Like, I'm not a big fan of the first film. I'm interested though in seeing this one just because of the technical wizardry that you're talking about, right? But I'm rooting for this film on so many different levels. Number one, I don't know. I've taken a liking to James Cameron. He's so he's like so confident. He's almost like a kind of an asshole about it, right? Like, and I'm kind of rooting for him. I don't know why. He's likable. He is, right? I wanted to do well for that. I wanted to do well also for the parks, though, because like what Captain John D and everyone's here saying is that we want to see more of it in the parks, right? And if this movie does really, really well, and it seems like it's off to a good start, but if it definitely hits like the higher end of this, of what they're thinking it's going to do, then I think there's a good chance we'll see these expansions of Pandora, maybe an Animal Kingdom, like you were talking. Maybe we'll see an Avatar Pandora port over at Disney Sea or what have you. I don't know. I'm not an Avatar person, but I'm like energized over this movie because of there's so much potential here. And like I said, I like Cameron and I like the kind of quality he puts into his projects. And I really want Hollywood to see that and go, look, this guy puts it like all the money, all the quality into these things, and he gets it back. It sends a message to Hollywood, do that and you'll be rewarded as well. As opposed to when crappy movies do really, really well, it kind of sends a message out there like, do bottom of the barrel and you'll make your money back, right? So
yeah. I mean, you know, there definitely is a little bit of that. Look, I mean, the industry needs a big win, just generally overall.
Yeah.
Avatar can provide that, so that's kind of why I'm rooting for it. Theaters for sure. Disney themselves, I mean, they've had some big misses. And from what I understand, this film has already eclipsed $700 million worldwide, which is great because was it Wakanda Forever? Actually just came out, and that I think topped out at like what 790, 800 million or so. So it's already has that. It's only been out for what less than a week. So that is pretty good there. There are definitely some international drivers for this film that make the prospect of it getting to, I believe that vaunted $2 billion figure possible. But you know, it's definitely going to need some support, you know, around the various countries in which it has been released so far. In my theater, I think there were maybe about 20 or so people in there. I mean, it was a little low, but again, I went kind of an off time in order to avoid having to, compete too much for a decent seat for this thing. So.
Well, and it's weird because these Cameron movies really leg out, and I was kind of hoping like maybe by the end of this weekend we'll kind of get a good picture as to where this movie might land in terms of box office. But that might not even be the case because we have, as George Disney Family Man knows, this massive storm in the Northeast, preventing a lot of people in that area from seeing it. So that and plus Christmas falls on a Sunday this year.
Yeah.
That might put a dent in the box office earnings this weekend and might push people out into next week. So we're still kind of in limbo with this thing,
We're in limbo for sure. So I think the last Avatar, I think the Christmas Day fell on a Saturday, which was perfect because from what I understand, Christmas Eve has always been like a not good for the box office. Let's say, I'll put it that way, as people set up, you know, are preparing for the holiday the next day. But on the holiday day, very, very profitable for the box office. This falls on a Sunday. We'll have to see how that kind of interacts here. I think this film will leg out. The question is to what degree. Renegade recently put out a video suggesting he was a little bit concerned with some of the numbers from the various days in comparing some of the days between the original Avatar. Some of the days were actually lighter in terms of box office performance from the original Avatar. Now, that's key here because there's a 70% disparity in terms of ticket price between the two. Wow. So the fact that it wasn't making as much money on particular days as the original Avatar was a little bit concerning to him. However, I think it still has a chance to leg out, particularly in international markets where James Cameron films really do play well, especially the first Avatar. I think it will do decent. It's just right now we just don't know. We have obviously what's going on in China, which was historically a huge market for this movie, but we know how things have been kind of going there, let's say. I'll just leave it there. We have this big storm surge right now affecting many of the major markets for this film, and the availability of the certain theaters and the availability of people to even go to this thing. This is kind of a tough thing. So we will see. I do recommend to people actually go see it. The question is where, because not all theaters are set up to the same degree.
Right.
Some people have had some conversation in the chat I'm seeing with IMAX and so forth. I'll say this about IMAX, right? There's kind of like two different variations of IMAX. OG, do you know what I'm talking about here? Where it's like you have like a IMAX or faux IMAX, and then you have
Oh yeah, I've done the
real
full
IMAX.
one. I've done the full one. It looks like a regular theater to me.
It's a regular theater, just bigger, right? Okay, I don't go there. I'll just say that. So really, it's like, do you have a true IMAX screen near you, or do you have a Dolby Cinema near you? These are really the kind of the premium large format screens that you should be probably considering for this. And not all full IMAX screens are actually capable of producing the HFR or the high frame rate picture that is part of this film. So you kind of have to look that up in advance. It should be listed in your in the times, right? It should have like 3D with HFR or whatever listed. But if it doesn't, that tells you something. Whereas all Dolby Cinemas at AMC are outfitted with HFR technology and their Dolby 3D, which is spectacular. That's the one I kind of saw it on, and I'm hearing from people that the contrast ratio is better, that the brightness is better, the 3D is much improved. The audio experience is phenomenal, where you have Atmos as opposed to the 12-channel audio that you have in IMAX and so forth. So I would definitely, hey, if you're going to see this, check out Dolby Cinema. Try to see it in that venue. If not, pursue a real for real IMAX screen to see this in with HFR, and give provide yourself an opportunity to see this film in a once of a kind venue that you'll not be able to experience it again. Let's say, right? When this film comes out, you won't necessarily have 3D and so forth, because I think the last 3D TV was produced in 2016. So probably nobody has a 3D TV. It probably won't come out in 3D. See it now while it's in there for sure.
Yeah, and friend of the channel, Rob Fuse says he actually kind of did do a sequel. He went in a sub to see the shop. Now, Rob, are you referring? I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm not 100%. So comment in the chat. Are you referring to that documentary, the James Cameron doc he did on Titanic? I believe it's a Nat Geo thing. I thought I saw that on Disney Plus, and I love stuff like that, so I was gonna watch it just the other day, actually. But comment, Rob, in the chat if that's what you're referring to, where Cameron went into the sub to check out the Titanic wreckage and all that stuff. I'm very curious.
Didn't he do like 2 or 3 productions with like that were kind of documentary style that, he went underwater and shot some footage of some stuff, including the Titanic, right? I think he did. And I think that's what Rob is referring to here. I haven't seen them yet, but I haven't seen them yet. I want to watch them. Actually, right now, speaking of Disney Plus and Nat Geo, right now I'm watching this great doc, man. I probably should have got the name. It's all about ancient Egypt. It's a National Geographic thing on Disney Plus. It's all about ancient Egypt. There's like 4 seasons of this thing, and all these archaeologists, they go out to ancient Egypt and they're excavating these like tombs, and they're going in and like finding like the remains and the mummies. Oh God, chef's kiss! I'm eating it up. I've already burned through like 3 seasons in like a week. I'm like, I love this show. I gotta find the name of it. It's on Disney Plus. It's Nat Geo. It's about ancient Egypt. It's absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. And then Mr. Captain John D says, yes, he did. And he also promoted a museum tour with actual artifacts from the Titanic. See, James Cameron, as George would say, goes balls to the wall. He never does a half measure. Never. Cameron goes all out. Actual artifacts from the Titanic. That's how Cameron does it every single time. Every single time.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Drew Doherty says here, well, the Titanic has a sister ship that sunk after Titanic named the Britannic. She was a hospital ship during World War I. I think James Cameron should do a Titanic sequel based on that with Rose in it. It's an interesting idea. I mean, Rose, the actress who plays her anyway, I forgot her name, but she's actually in Avatar: The Way of Water. Also, Sigourney Weaver Ripley. So he is integrating some of his previous acting or actor choices in his latest film there for sure. I don't know if he'll go back to the doing anything related to the Titanic. It would be cool, but he seems to be very focused on Avatar, which is kind of a shame, because I'd like to see him spread his creative wings out. But for Avatar fans, from what I understand, you're going to be getting a lot of it. Drunk 3PO, is this live? Yes, it is. It is live for sure. Drunk, from what I understand, you are a huge Avatar fan. I definitely would love to do a show with you on that, because I think you and I have some interesting thoughts. Now, OG, you just go ahead and see it yourself, and that way the whole OG55 crew can go on Drunk 3PO show and really debate some Avatar.
Yes,
too, for sure.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I'm very curious because I'm not a huge Avatar guy, but I'm hearing really great things about it. And like what you were saying, Dre, like with the visuals and all that, I'm very curious to kind of have that experience in the theater. I'm very, very curious. So we'll see, We'll see.
For sure. I mean, it's an experience, man. I mean, when you're in there, Drunk 3PO with the $20 super chat. Merry Christmas. That's
Merry
fantastic.
Christmas, Drunk. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much, brother. Drunk 3PO is a friend of the channel. Check him out. He does fantastic content. We love Drunk. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely. One of the most charitable guys that you'll ever meet. Just a sweetheart of a human being. Really phenomenal. And Drunk 3PO. Yep. I loved Avatar. Yeah. It's interesting. I saw it. So what I did was I got the extended cut of it, right? I saw it like 6 hours before I saw the new one, right? So I was in Avatar for 6 hours, I think, between the two films. It's a lot. I was in the world of Pandora for that long time. I gotta be honest, the older one, I didn't have, I wasn't super charitable to it, right? But now looking back on it, I really have a new appreciation for it. That's actually a pretty decent film, all things considered.
So now, Dre, do you feel like this is like kind of shaping up to be one of Disney's like really stronger franchises? Now we have Marvel, we have Star Wars. Is Avatar after this one for you kind of shaping up to be they're kind of playing with the big dogs now a little bit, or is it still kind of behind?
It has the potential that, the issue that I see, I mean, and from what I understand, the Avatar lore is very deep. Like there's been some comic books and some ancillary material that have kind of fleshed out the world of Avatar, and it's actually pretty robust, all things considering. I've seen some people actually like the lore of Avatar more than the movies, which is pretty crazy to think about. That's right. Wild. So there definitely is the potential to go off in these kind of other directions and to kind of expand this out and provide a basis by which you can actually produce content like shows and so forth around it. The question, though, is like, this film is pretty, like, there's some dark elements to it. It's a very kind of almost adult subject matter in some of these things. How well does that play when you're trying to do like a show geared for Disney Plus, for example, that, is kind of kid friendly? How does that all kind of work there? I'm not quite sure how that all does. Also, too, this is a very expensive, like if you're recreating the world of Pandora, that's an expensive venture. Like that is something that you have to undertake. It's not quite as easy as, I don't know, the volume, right, that you have for the Mandalorian, for example, right, where it's like you can have just this kind of barren environment, right, that you create on this kind of LED screen, and you can provide your actors an environment in which to play, and it's not all that expensive. This is like a dense jungle, or this is underwater. How do you do that economically? Right. It's like that's kind of a question that I have. Drunk 3PO, there's a great channel called Drinking in Pandora that has all the great Avatar lore. Interesting. I wonder who runs that channel, Drunk. Thank you.
Yes. Check it out.
Check out Drunk's second channel right there. That's what that is. No, for sure. And hey, I tell you, that lore that exists. So there is some things you can jump off.
Yeah.
Regarding the franchise. It's just, I don't know if Disney's going to want to pursue it just because the cost to it. We do have an idea that maybe James Cameron himself can utilize a platform like Disney Plus to provide an extended or expansive look at some of these films, which we'll get into. But as far as like a franchise that has all these kind of different shows and movies into it, hard to say when it's all limited to one guy.
Right.
Captain John D.
Right here. WDW Pro said Avatar 2 is heavy and dark in places. I think that's great. Oh, I think it's great too, John. That actually kind of draws me to it more. I like dark. I do. I like the dark. That's awesome. Actually, WDW Pro dropped a bombshell today in the chat. Did you guys see this bombshell that he dropped about Harry Potter? Oh my God. And we're gonna try to get Ashton on the show because she loves Harry Potter,
Yeah.
But like and do a whole thing on it. But Pro is saying that Zaslav and Warner Brothers are looking to reboot the films, like remake them with a whole new cast.
Let me see
Unbelievable.
Let me see if I can find that tweet there so we have it.
Yeah, Captain John D says, I hope it's false. I just can't see fans being on board with that. It would be like taking the original Star Wars movie, like the original trilogy, and rebooting those 3 films with a whole new cast. I just
can't share my screen.
I can't. I don't think fans would be on board with something like that. But I could be wrong. I'm not a huge Potter person. Maybe their fandom is up for that. I don't know.
WW Pro exclusive leak. Warner Brothers Discovery is reportedly looking to reboot the Harry Potter film franchise, including recasting in the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
We will release some details of how I became aware of this information, presented by a source on the Valiant Renegade channel tomorrow morning. That's big. That's a big move. Like you said, OG. I don't know. It's a big step here. I mean, that franchise, those original films are lauded as being one of the best in the fantasy genre. So many fan fictions or whatever have been written and done based on those original characters, those original settings, those original stories, and so forth. Obviously, we've seen the outpouring of creativity bore out of that through as the whole thing is included in various theme parks, right, with the Wizarding World, Diagon Alley, and so forth, right? So we've seen some tremendous creative outgrowth from those films. The score is iconic. Those characters are iconic. The actors are intrinsically linked to those characters and so forth. To upend that with a recasting and a reboot, that is really risky venture. Now, I understand it from an executive standpoint. From an executive standpoint, you're probably thinking, hey, this is the most profitable route to go with this franchise, or potentially profitable. So I can see where somebody might be inclined to pursue this. But you could kill a franchise if you're doing this.
Look at the drama Star Wars going through. They didn't even reboot Star Wars. They're just using legacy characters in new films, right? Like it's like the sequel trilogy, Kenobi, and what have you. And look at all the fan backlash with all those films and shows. Could you imagine the backlash? And Captain John D, I agree with him on this completely. Can you imagine the backlash of them rebooting and redoing those films from start to finish with a whole new cast? And our good friend Alia, friend of the channel, had a great point. She was talking to us in the DMs. She thinks that Daniel Radcliffe, who plays Harry Potter, and Emma Watson, they are at issue with J.K. Rowling because of her political beliefs and her view on trans and all that, and they're refusing to work with her. And what Alia's theory is that because Harry and Hermione, the actor and actress who play those two main characters, are unwilling to work with J.K. Rowling, Zaslav is sort of forced into kind of doing this reboot now. I don't know. I think there's other ways around it, Zaslav. Like you can maybe dip into other timelines, maybe like go way in the future where you have an older Harry, older Hermione, and you get around that casting. There's better ways to do it, bro. But rebooting all the films ain't it. I think it's gonna lead to a huge mess, a massive mess, and a ton of fan backlash. But I could be wrong.
There have been, and to your point, OG, there have been various timelines in which fans have wanted to see the Harry Potter franchise kind of dive into. We've seen I think I heard a concept where like the rise of Voldemort and how that all goes, and his original purging of the Wizarding World and all that kind of drama and backdrop, right? That doesn't involve Harry or Hermione. So, do you pursue that angle? This seems like one of desperation to me, and I guess it gives kind of credence to Alia's theory in which, maybe Zaslav is acting out of desperation and sees this as the only viable path going forward. It's interesting because we did a show all based around the quarterly earnings report for Warner Brothers, and they had a graphic showing all of their notable film franchises within Warner Brothers Discovery's catalog. One of those was The Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Zaslav himself viewed that as one of their most valuable and viable franchise going forward. To capitalize on it in this way, huge risk. This is something I would not pursue. This is something I would not do. Those characters, those actors, those stories, they're just iconic. And for the studio, I mean, this used to be like $1 billion a year thing for them. Like every single time one of these films would drop, I mean, it was a $1 billion blockbuster for sure. I can understand the rationale and why you'd want to duplicate that, obviously,
right?
And especially at a time when Warner Bros. Discovery isn't doing all that well. But this way, no, I wouldn't do it.
No, I wouldn't do it either. There's creative ways around the casting. Zaslav needs to look at a more. To me, the reboot is lazy. I'll just be straight up with you. It's lazy. We're just gonna. It's like the Disney animated live action trend, right? It's like, let's just take this hit movie and redo it, and it's just a cash cow. It's lazy. With this franchise, they need to find a more creative way. If it is Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe, that's that issue here. You got to find a creative way to get around that, Zaslav. Just redoing the movies is not it, and that's going to open Warner up to all kinds of, oh my gosh, look at what's going on. I just can't say it enough. Look at what is going on with Star Wars, and like now you're going to open yourself to all that drama with Harry Potter, and they already have all this drama with DC right now with James Gunn, and he's getting it from all sides, like the Snyder fans. Now he wants to add Harry Potter into that mix. Like, come on. Yeah.
It's so funny because Zaslav has inherited some amazing franchises.
Oh,
Matrix was the Harry Potter, DC, but they're all either past their prime, right? Or they have to be rebooted or something has to be done to them in order to make them relevant once again. And it's like, what do you do? I was kind of open to the idea of doing like a Harry Potter series.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would watch that.
Kind of a young adult thing in which you follow the lives of maybe some new aspiring wizards and witches as they go through their journey at Hogwarts. And you could do it in a much more nuanced way than what could be afforded to you if you limited it to like a film, right? Which brings us to, I think, the final thing in this Avatar thing, which is, maybe doing the extended release on Disney Plus exclusively, and maybe doing a separate theatrical version. So this comes to us from Film Facts. James Cameron wants to do a film where it has a 6-hour version for streaming and a 2.5-hour version for theaters. Quote, let's use these platforms in ways that haven't been done before. It's rumored that he turned in a 9-hour cut of Avatar 3. I can just tell you right now, ain't no way. There ain't no way they're going to release a 9-hour cut of something. That's not going to happen no matter how you slice it. However, I like this idea. And it's actually not even that original. In fact, Quentin Tarantino has already done this with The Hateful Eight. So if you remember the release of The Hateful Eight originally, it had a normal theatrical version, and it did have a special traveling roadshow version in which they had kind of an old school, I think, Panavision 70 millimeter projector installed, and they played a extended cut of the film with that enhanced format for people who actually saw it in the theaters. And it featured exclusive footage and so forth, featured an intermission because it was so long. And for years after that film was released, we never saw that footage again in any subsequent release, whether it be DVD, Blu-ray, and so forth, until Quentin Tarantino does a deal with Netflix. And now if you go on Netflix, you have two versions of The Hateful Eight, which you can see. One is the theatrical version, and the second one is an extended cut. And it's actually broken up into 4 parts with in 50-minute intervals, in which you can digest an extended cut of this film, but not be subjected to like a 4-hour movie or what is it? Multiple discs, right? And it's like, wow, that's cool to get that footage out there in that format. So utilizing streaming in this way, in which you have like your traditional theatrical release, right?
Yeah.
And then you have maybe in 6 months' time an extended version in which you have all of these kind of episodes connected to a Avatar release. That is really, really cool, and it could provide additional content for the streaming platform as well.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great. Absolutely fantastic. Kevin Davis here says can't talk. Strange World going to do well on Disney Plus. Honestly, Kevin, I kind of respectfully disagree. I mean, you might be right. I don't see it. I just don't. I mean, the thing is, like, people are kind of assuming that it's going to follow the same trajectory as like Encanto. The thing with Encanto is that Encanto was actually a good movie. but aside from that,
that's terrible, OG. I cannot believe you said that. All it did was do a B cinema grade, which no other Disney film has ever done. Come on.
Yeah, but I mean, Encanto was a really good movie. People, when they saw Encanto, they liked it. So
Yeah.
when people got around to seeing it on Disney Plus, they fell in love with the music. They liked the story. It caught fire. The problem with Strange World is that the people that are seeing it aren't loving it. So not many people are seeing it in theaters, but the people that are seeing it in theaters aren't walking away going, that was a great movie. I don't think that's going to change when people watch it on Disney Plus, and it doesn't have the catchy music like Encanto did. I think it's going to, I don't know. I think it's going to kind of whimper its way through Disney Plus. I think they're just, I don't know. There's not much interest, and people aren't walking away loving it. The people that are seeing it aren't loving it.
So I can tell you right now, Kevin Davis, to just give you a little bit of insight, because I believe it is hitting Disney Plus relatively soon, right? Strange World?
Yeah. I think Christmas Day, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that.
I'm seeing it out there on digital platforms. So it's tough to get a read on interest for these films, when it comes to kind of their streaming releases, because there are no good numbers in which to draw from. I mean, there are like Nielsen and some others, but we don't see those for months later. So I developed a way in which I could gauge or judge the reaction to a film hitting streaming that wasn't subject to some of those outlets that have their own way of determining those metrics. And one of those was going on some of the sites that are connected to the high seas. Captain John D. Not your high seas, but digital high seas. And I won't say any more than that. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you don't. Well, that's just that, right? And you can see how many of these fellow pirates, let's say, this community of pirates, have supported a film amongst their own communities, and I can just tell you right now, Strange World has almost zero demand amongst them, and usually that trend is very consistent with trends or demand for a film generally. Like there's some cross pollination there, and there's just no demand for this film amongst even them, and that kind of gives me an insight. Okay, like it's just there's just nobody wants to see this thing, whether it be at theater or not.
It's like Lightyear. Same thing happened with Lightyear. It didn't do well in the box office. It went on Disney Plus, and no one really cared. And I think this is going to be that same kind of situation. Tyler here is asking, do you think the all-in-one platform Chapek talked about will come to fruition under Iger? So the all-in-one that he's talking about is, I think, bringing Hulu into the D Plus, right? If I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that's going to happen under Iger, because I don't really know if. Look, I got to be real with you, Tyler. I don't even know what Disney's going to do with Hulu. Like, I think it's on the table to sell it to Comcast. I really do. Now, do I think it's likely? Is that like where I'm like, you know, I'm not going to put money on it? No. But I think it's definitely a possibility. I would put it that way. Definitely a possibility. It would be a revenue stream for Disney to sell it to Comcast and maybe license out their content to them to use it. And I think Wall Street would love that. I mean, especially when the company is kind of strapped for cash right now, that might be an option. So I don't even know if they're going to own Hulu, number one, but number two, I don't think Iger is as on board with the whole like adult content thing on D Plus like Chapes was. I think Iger is much more traditional in that regard, and I don't think he's going to be completely okay with being a Hulu tab, tile, whatever, and being like password protected and all that good stuff. Chapek was fine with it. I don't know if Iger will be. I could be wrong though. What do you think, Dre?
We've heard that the ARPU, or the average revenue per user of Hulu, is the envy of the streaming world. Man, I would be surprised if they relinquish that asset completely to Comcast. I'd be surprised whether or not it's going to be integrated into Disney Plus. Like you said, for the reasons you state,
yeah,
I could see why Iger would want to keep those things separate. But if you want to increase the price of Disney Plus, the monthly price of it, maybe that's one of the reasons why we would see integration between the two platforms. I'm just not sure, but yeah, I think Iger is less receptive to the idea of integrating those platforms in a way that Chapek was, and that might be a hindrance for maybe even further investment into Hulu. Maybe even like keeping Hulu altogether, like you said, could just offload the whole thing to Comcast and write the balance sheet that way, right?
Right.
That's going to be an interesting thing to see for sure.
And it would be in Comcast's interest too to have Hulu. Like Comcast is not, they're not doing anything on streaming. I mean, Peacock is kind of like the last of the streamers, right? They're not pulling really any decent numbers. Comcast could use a Hulu big time.
They could, but, would it upset the market that you're giving away not just that content library and that repository, but also that subscriber base?
Right. That's true.
That's the risk there.
And you also have a platform to put your more adult stuff, right? Like Handmaid's Tale, you're not putting that on Disney Plus, right? Disney has all these studios like Fox and FX and all that, where they need to put this content somewhere. And if you can't put it on Disney Plus, where are you going to put it then? If you don't have Hulu, that's another thing, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's I would, kind of like we were saying with the ESPN, how it's kind of separated, right, from the Disney brand. I can see Hulu maintaining that kind of distance from the Disney brand and setting all that content that way. If in fact you produce it or get your hands on it. Showcase of Wishes, Disney Plus will have to add Hulu or Star soon. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the problems with Disney Plus is just the diversity of content. There is not a lot of it. It's all very geared towards
families.
Family friendly, film and television and stuff like that. Hulu provides a great outlet for a more well-rounded repository of content. Jay Pike says, I was hoping Strange World is better than the Willow series. Willow is the first time I've ever hate-watched before. You had some comments on this, didn't you, OG?
Oh, yeah. I watched the first episode and I tapped out, Jay Pike. I don't know. Like, there's a good show in there somewhere, but this ain't it, And one of the things that really bothered me, and I don't know the names, I don't really care about their names or whatever, but there's one girl in there. Everyone seems to kind of fit this realm, right? The way they talk, the way they carry themselves. they all kind of fit this kind of whimsical little realm. And there's one girl, she's a main character. I don't know her name, brunette. Okay. But she talks, I was telling Dre, like very modern, like a Valley girl almost, like, oh my gosh, you guys, you know, da 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 da. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, why is she on the show? It feels like she feels so out of place. It was jarring, you know, and the show honestly was so bad. Jay Pike, I completely understand what you're saying when you're hate watching it. I mean, it's so bad. I got through one episode. I'll never touch it again, though. Honestly, it was just terrible. Absolutely
Did she
terrible.
have vocal fry? You know, where it's like,
hey, how you doing? Like, what's going on?
like
That's
that?
exactly how she sounded like.
Really? Oh gosh, yeah, that's terrible. Okay,
Now,
I
Jay
have heard. Oh, go ahead.
I'll just ask Jay Pike. Jay Pike, if you know the character I'm talking about, post it in the chat, please, because I don't know her name. But maybe you can tell me. Maybe you picked up on her voice and the way she carries herself as being completely different than all the other characters. So comment if you know the name. But go ahead, Dre. I'm sorry.
Look, I have heard nothing but bad reviews for Willow. Like nothing but bad. I mean, everybody's like, they either haven't watched it or if they have watched it, they do not like what they watch. And some people who I would think would be pretty predisposed to liking it do not like this thing. So I know just from that, it is not worth my time. And I have very limited time these days. So I won't be watching it. And again, this is, look, I don't want to be this guy where it's like, it's all on Kathleen Kennedy's shoulders, right? But again, at this point in her career, at this point in the kind of state of Star Wars right now and some of these other franchises and so forth, probably need new leadership.
I think we're ready. I think we're ready. Jon Favreau, come on, take the reins.
Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau. Captain John D says Kit is her name. Okay, so John D, do you agree with me that it's like she's just so fucking jarring? Like she doesn't fit like any of the other characters or like the vibe of the show at all. It blew me away. It was embarrassingly bad. It really was. I couldn't believe what I was watching, to be quite honest with you.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't believe it. Oh, and actually, real quick, Michael, I'll come back to you. But Jay Pike says here, Princess Kit Thanalos was a Dakini noble, the daughter of Queen Sorsha of Tir Aslan. And wow, Jay Pike bringing it. Look at Jay Pike.
Look at him.
Woo! Woo! Yeah, it's a bad show. It's a bad show. But maybe if you guys want to hate watch it like Jay Pike does, you might get some laughs out of it. Maybe have a few drinks and just kind of, you might have a good time then. But it's not that great.
Jay Pike, you ask about, does Hulu own content as a brand or is it all owned by Disney? So I think there are some licensing agreements that go into some of the content that's on Hulu, and Hulu itself is only owned 66% by Disney. The other 33% is owned by Comcast, so that's kind of where that goes. Just wanted to go ahead and add some clarity to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Captain John D says, yes, agreed. Writing and dialogue was very bad. It was
terrible. Oh, Tyler Froming. That's an interesting plot twist. Chapek wrote the Willow script himself. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, like I can see Chapes like, Hey, look, Chapes is a great businessman. Chapes, and I'll stand by him on this. He's a brilliant business mind. Okay. Mm-hmm. A creative mind he is not. And I can definitely see him writing the script on this one.
If you have an entertainment company, maybe Chapek's not your guy. But if you have like the Gap or something, there you go.
Yeah, or if you have like some car insurance company, Chapek will crush, man. He's all business. That's the kind of thing he needs to get into. Is something like that,
Look at how many IPs we can fit in this thing. Okay.
Yeah,
Throw a meme. Okay.
Ken Davis here says Peacock okay streaming service. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not getting any traction though. It's really it's kind of limping along.
It isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Jay Pike says, "Not me. Google did that."
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
I thought it was, the spelling and everything is like,
wow, you know your shit.
That's a little copy pasty, but hey, maybe he did actually type it out. Nope. Okay. Well, thank you, Jay Pike. Thank you for being honest.
Yes. And actually, Jay Pike is, I believe he's a moderator for Hey Bricky Friend of the channel. We love Hey Bricky. Check him out. If you're in the Disney parks, Hey Bricky's your guy. Check him out on YouTube. He is phenomenal. Yes.
Gotta Hey Bricky some love.
Yep, absolutely. DC here says Comcast will buy Warner Brothers Discovery. Disney will buy all of Hulu for all their adult contents and shows. Deadpool 3, Always Sunny, etc. Man, I'm telling you, that Comcast rumor keeps rearing its head, right? We keep hearing it. Comcast wants to buy Warner. If Comcast buys Warner, that changes the game for Universal with their parks. Because I've been saying for a long time, the IP that Universal has, the in-house IP, at least for me, I have no interest in it. I don't care about Minions. I don't really care about Fast and Furious. Everything that interests me for Universal Parks, in IP wise, is rented. They're licensing out. So Nintendo, Harry Potter, it's all licensed stuff, right? If they were to buy Warner Brothers, that changes overnight. They got the Looney Tunes, Animaniacs. I love the Animaniacs. They got all the DC superhero stuff. I mean, they're just they inherit really a library on par with the Walt Disney Company, and it would be an absolute game changer. Now, in this environment with the federal kind of regulatory stuff that you're seeing,
SEC, no.
Yeah, a buy like that pie won't happen. Maybe in a few years, the temperature in the room will change a little bit, and maybe they can swoop it. Hey, and it's cheap right now. Warner Brothers Discovery stock's like $8 a share. It's like $8 a share. I'm looking at this thing going, oh my God. Everyone's freaking out about Disney being $86 a share. This thing's like rock bottom prices over here.
Well, Disney did decline about 45% in this year alone, but $8. Look, there are some people in Washington, D.C. who are uncomfortable with the Warner Brothers Discovery deal as it exists today. I can't imagine they would be on board with a Comcast buyout. But I mean, you do make a great point, OG. It's an IP game for these legacy studios like Disney, like Comcast, and all that kind of stuff, who have to compete with these enormous tech giants and so forth. The difference maker is IP. Comcast doesn't have a big repository of that, unfortunately. Whereas Warner Brothers Discovery, they do. It's just, can Zaslav actually capitalize on it? With this rumor of this reboot for Harry Potter and all the DC trouble, jury's still out for sure. Yeah,
and actually, I think Captain John D will appreciate this. Speaking of Warner Brothers,
sure,
their Looney Tunes shorts that the brand new ones, right, that went straight to HBO Max, are absolute perfection. When you watch these shorts, all the characters are on model, and basically what that means for people that aren't aware, on model is basically like they look like the original source material. Is basically all that means, right? They're all on model. The animation is new and crisp, but it is definitely the characters that you enjoyed from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, right? Beautiful. The Looney Tunes cartoons is exactly what I want to see Disney do with Mickey Mouse. These new Mickey Mouse shorts, while they are well written and they do have a lot of great Easter eggs for us nerds, it looks like Ren and Stimpy animation. It looks like something you see on Cartoon Network or Nicktoons. I'm sorry, Mickey deserves better than that. Okay, this is not only just a character. This is a global icon, right? And for this company, they really, I don't know. In my opinion, a lot of people love those shorts. I would rather them go a more traditional route like the Looney Tunes. I don't know. We'll see.
The shorts are extremely popular, I don't know. The kids love it, I guess, this new Mickey version or whatever. We'll have to be seeing him for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, especially as the company doubles down with this version of Mickey integrated in not only their theme parks via Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway, both of them, by the way, Disneyland and Disney Hollywood Studios, but also with the Aqueduct Mouse Coaster attraction on board the Wish. So,
yeah. Now we're going to take 2 more comments and we're going to head out to my 2-hour and 17-minute crew. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with us for this, pretty lengthy show. But Drew here says, do you think Anastasia is a Disney princess? I mean, technically, yeah, now she is. They bought Fox and she was a Fox property. Technically, she's a Disney princess, right?
Yeah. That's what the Did we hear somewhere where the company kind of considered her Disney princess? Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe not completely unfortunate, right? It's you know, you consider the Disney princesses as ones that Disney themselves developed, right? I think a lot of people were happy that like Princess Leia, for example, right, was folded into like the Disney princess list there. You know, so I guess you can look at it in a variety of ways, but I don't know. For me, Disney princess says that you were born out of the Disney Animation Studios specifically.
Yeah. Well, that's how, I would see it too. But Disney actually, if I remember correctly, Disney, they had a Disney princess ceremony kind of welcoming, I think it was Merida from Brave into the Disney princess thing a few years ago, which is interesting because that was a Pixar movie, but they're kind of inaugurating her into that Disney princess club. And it's like, well, okay, then is Anastasia kind of the same? It gets kind of, you know, muddy with all that. It's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't really, honestly, I don't think Disney's going to do much with Anastasia. I really don't.
No.
So I don't think it really matters.
Limited, what is this, vertical with that? Captain John D. Agreed, OG. Throw a little film grain on the HBO Max Looney Tunes shorts, and they could pass for 40s era cartoons. Chef's kiss, yeah. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Sure. And then Jay Pike says Sony Animation is great underdog. That's some great content. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We're seeing a lot of studios, you know, really get into the animation game, you know, Skydance obviously and so forth. There's some great there's a great future there with that, especially as Disney's kind of on their heels a little bit. You know, you got Comcast rising up with Illumination and their DreamWorks Studios, so pretty cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Everybody, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Jay Pike, DC, Michael Ebba, Drew Doherty, Showcase of Wishes, our good friend Captain John D. You know, I had a
Gotcha.
Yes, we had to do it one more time. Kevin Davis, Royalty Legends,
Theme Park
Casual, everybody that joined us today. Thank you so much. I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, whatever you celebrate. I hope you're doing it and you're having a great time with friends and family. This is it's been an honor actually. Talking shop with everybody here today. Yeah. Dre, I'll let you go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you on social media, and we'll kind of close this out a little bit.
No problem. If you want to go ahead and follow me, you can go do so at Vashguy. That's just right there. Go ahead and type that in at Vashguy. V as in Victor, ASHSKY. I believe Theme Park Casual linked it up there in the chat, so you can scroll up and you can find it there as well. For all the, as Christine Wastelands McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there, for sure. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55, where you can find shows like the one you're watching right now, Orange Nerd with the amazing, irreplaceable, one-of-a-kind OG55 here, the person to my right or left, right. I don't know. Yeah, other guy on the screen there.
There you go.
Fantastic, brother. Thank you so much. You can also find shows like what is it? Citrus Corner with the amazing My Brother in Arms there as well. Brother from another mother, just like OG here. Disney Family Man 23, George, with, you know, covering all kinds of stuff when it comes to Walt Disney World, and my own Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. Now, I will say, OG, for all the people watching right here, for the entire crew, thank you so much for sticking with us for this amount of time. If you could, please, before you go ahead and like this video. If you haven't yet so far, either leave a comment in the chat or a comment down below. It absolutely does help the engagement. Share it out if you could. that always helps us out. And thank you for all your support over this last year or so. We're kind of coming up to at the end of 2022. Thank you for sticking around with us as this channel grows and so forth. It has been phenomenal to see and witness and be on the receiving end. So thank you so much for the amazing amount of support that you guys provide.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to do some Disney ASMR. No, I'm kidding. I've been doing that for the algorithm. If YouTube hears me say ASMR, it might help us out a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
There you go. Keywords.
There we go.
Gotcha.
There we go. And Showcase says, a long show, he can go from Carl's Jr. I think he can, Showcase. We got a special holiday edition of the Carl's Jr. drop coming right at you right now. Thank you all again so much for watching. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.